September 2015, Sosnovy Bor, Russia. In an urban corridor built in 1958 for workers at the Leningrad nuclear power plant, two local residents wade into the shallows of the Kavashi River, where they discover something otherworldly. A tiny creature which appears to have an elongated skull, shrunken frame, and taloned limb. In order to find out more, the local residents christened the creature Kesha and handed it over to a biologist. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt takes a look at this tiny monstrosity.
This is really freaky and weird. Russian scientists were unable to identify this particular carcass, which led to some remarkable speculation. Is it possible that we could be looking at some type of alien creature? A juvenile of some strange species, perhaps? A fetus of something not of this earth?
What seems like a wild theory might not be so far-fetched. This exact area where the creature was discovered is known to be a hotbed of strange UFO sightings and activity.
As recently as February of this year, the airports around St. Petersburg were actually shut down due to reports of a UFO entering Russian airspace. And in one notable incident from 1977, in the nearby city of Petrozavodsk, there was this giant luminous object that was reported by many of the locals. And according to the eyewitness testimony, it actually shot down these beams of light or radiation from the sky onto the earth below. This is a pretty famous incident in terms of Russian UFO history.
The physical appearance of this specimen is not unlike previous descriptions of alien visitors specific to Russia, many of whom bear resemblance to the infamous Greys.
Many of the Russian alien accounts describe these humanoid creatures with huge craniums and spindly bodies with long limbs. And that certainly reminds me of this image that we're looking at here, and it certainly fits within the paradigm of Russian UFO lore.
But while some believe it's an alien, others think it's a mutation from right here on Earth.
A lot of this has to do with the Leningrad nuclear power plant. According to the former Russian inspector for nuclear and radiation safety, Vladimir Kuznetsov, this particular plant has a long tradition and history of cover-ups involving all manner of nuclear and radioactive accidents.
Two such incidents occurred in 1992 and 2009, where massive amounts of radiation were leaked into the surrounding environment, causing many to draw comparisons between the plant in Leningrad and Chernobyl.
If we look at the Chernobyl nuclear accident site, it's been documented that some of the animals in that area have actually begun to undergo different types of mutations and genetic changes. So it's not impossible that this strange creature could actually be the result of some terrible nuclear accident at the Leningrad nuclear power plant.
In a previous episode, we discussed another alleged Russian alien fetus known as Alyoshenka, which was also discovered under bizarre circumstances in an area near a nuclear disaster. It remains unidentified to this day. Will our experts be able to determine what was found this time in Leningrad? Let's find out. Biologist Shay Steingass explains how one would even go about determining if this was an alien life form or not.
The first thing we would probably do is look for genetic material in this animal. If this animal did have genetic material, we would probably deduce that this is actually an earthly animal of some kind.
Scientists have discovered that all living things on Earth share some of the same exact DNA, proving that we all have descended from one common ancestor. Any alien life forms would potentially be missing this universal DNA. But unfortunately, this creature's carcass was sent to Moscow, and the Russians have remained tight-lipped about any DNA testing.
Until we get those results back, we won't really know what exactly we're looking at.
Wildlife biologist Stephanie Manka believes we are looking at a deformity of some kind.
I think it's some sort of deformity because it doesn't look fully developed. The head tends to look honestly kind of fish-like, and it almost seems like there's a hoof. It looks like it's in the position of a fetus. It doesn't go along with the fetuses of different animals that we know. There's something wrong here.
So, could this be the mutated result of toxins from the nearby nuclear power plant?
There is a high possibility that this deformity could be a result of contamination. When you have a developing fetus, your cells are constantly dividing. When cells are replicating, they're more vulnerable to the radiation. So it does make sense that radiation could have caused developmental problems like this.
Our verdict? Unknown fetus. We like Menke's nuclear radiation theory, but we just don't have the DNA to prove it. If that information exists, the Russians are keeping it under lock and key. Makes you wonder what they're scared to reveal. But if and when Moscow decides to release those results, we'll be the first to let you know. May 21st, 2022, Amarillo, Texas. It's around 1:25 a.m. and the zoo's security cameras are keeping their sleepless eyes on its animals when they capture this. A strange figure just outside the zoo's perimeter lurks in the darkness. As we push in, the figure appears to be standing on two legs just on the other side of the fence, looking inside. Shocked by the size of the creature and its rather wolf-like head, the Amarillo Zoo has begun asking the general public for help figuring out what this UAO, unidentified Amarillo object, could be. Take another look. This bipedal creature is quite puzzling. The image goes viral with thousands of people viewing it. Now let's take a closer look at this image. A lot of folks have said they can discern fur on this thing's arms and pointed ears on its head. On the other hand, some people say it's standing like a human and it looks like it's wearing pants. And they see this as a jacket. As for me, I have no idea. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt cites the figure's resemblance to an infamous creature from folklore.
One of the theories is that it could in fact be a chupacabra, a famous creature that has been talked about throughout Latin American culture since the 1990s and is a blood-sucking type of creature. The name chupacabra actually means goat sucker, because it's been alleged that these creatures will drink the blood of goats and other small farm animals. I've examined the remains of several creatures that have been called chupacabras, and all of those animals displayed very dog-like features. Pointy ears, long snouts, strange skin, long fangs, other physical abnormalities.
During a 2-month period in 2010, more than 300 goats were slaughtered in rural Mexico. Ranchers believe these deaths resulted from a chupacabra stalking their livestock. So could this image be a chupacabra stalking the zoo? Our experts investigate. Professor of biology Floyd Hayes begins by estimating the size of the creature.
To me, it looks like the fence itself may be 12 feet high. The animal looks like it's maybe 6 feet behind the fence, which would make it smaller. It appears to be about half the height of the fence. It's maybe about 7.5 feet tall.
That's much bigger than the alleged size of a chupacabra. And there's another issue.
The chupacabra is allegedly a quadrupedal or four-legged animal, but this appears to be bipedal rather than quadrupedal. Bipedal means it's walking on two legs.
Next, wildlife biologist Stephanie Shuttler examines the creature's hair.
Chupacabras are described as being more hairless with gray and scaly skin. In this image, it seems to be more shaggy. It seems to have long hair, especially on top. So it doesn't fit the description.
And even though sightings of the creature have been reported, Shuttler says the proof has yet to be discovered.
Any evidence of animals that were thought to be chupacabras, it always ended up being a canid species like a coyote, dog, or fox with mange.
Demodectic mange is caused by a parasitic mite that lives in the hair follicles of canines. To rid themselves of the parasites, canines will scratch their fur and skin until it falls off. But the biggest red flag of all, why the zoo only released one image of such a startling discovery?
Camera traps, when they're triggered, they usually take multiple photos. So I would love to see the photos before and after. There's rarely a singular photo of an animal when the cameras are triggered. I suspect this was a publicity stunt by the Amarillo Zoo. If they really wanted to figure out what this animal was, there would definitely be more photos of it.
Now hold on a second. If this is a hoax, then the zoo has been keeping up the deception for months. Our verdict? Unidentified creature. A Seattle-based company specializing in wireless cameras donated 80 color night vision cameras to the Amarillo Zoo after this image went viral. So should this creature reappear, there should be plenty of proof to determine what it is. August 8th, 2017, North Queensland, Australia. David White, who runs cruises in the Daintree River Wildlife Preserve, is hoping to capture footage of a crocodile he'd spotted earlier in the day. But instead, he captures something much more disturbing. A tide pool sits undisturbed. Something sticks out of the water. Still, it could almost be a rock. But then, slowly, it begins to descend straight down into the pool. It goes down, 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 until eventually it sinks under the surface and out of view, leaving only a tiny bubble in its wake. Is this a creature, a rock, or something else entirely? Field researcher Ken Gerhardt believes we could be looking at a famed monstrosity from the land down under.
When I think of Australia, I think of the bunyip. Like many legendary creatures, the bunyip has various interpretations, but the most common one is that it is an aquatic creature covered in hair with a head like a dog, very large and powerful. And the Aboriginal people greatly fear the bunyip because it's said to come onto the land at night and drag its unwilling victims back into the swamp.
Bunyip sightings were reported in Australian newspapers throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, dating as far back as 1851, where it was reported that a bunyip had killed an Aboriginal man and had to be speared to death.
Being that the bunyip legend is so prevalent throughout Australia, I think we have to stop and consider the possibility that what we could be looking at here might be at the root of this bunyip mythology.
So the theory suggests that this is in fact some kind of living thing. Is it possibly a new discovery? Australian taxonomists name an average of 1,000 new species each year, and it's estimated that 2/3 of the continent's total species remain undocumented. Let's see what our experts can discover. Some have guessed that we're looking at the front tip of an Indo-Pacific crocodile, a species prevalent in this region, but our marine biologist is skeptical.
I can rule this out entirely as a crocodile because I don't see any of the body or head features of a crocodilian. It's not behaving like a crocodile. It's coming vertically up out of the water. And we have a little bit of size reference here when we see the bubble on the surface of the water, which means whatever this is, it's actually pretty small. And in addition to that, it actually has pretty smooth skin.
For those same reasons, both size and smoothness, Steingast thinks this creature contradicts reports of the legendary bunyip.
I would probably rule out that this is a bunyip, especially because the bunyip is said to hunt at night, and this footage was taken during the day.
Then what is it?
Based on this video and looking at the environment, I think this is actually a mud skipper.
The mud skipper is a fish that can spend as much time in air as in the water. It can grow up to 12 inches in length, breathes through its skin, and uses its fins like legs to walk. But NASA geologist Bob Anderson says that can't be, because the environment is just too harsh for most known animals.
The environment around it, it's very carbonaceous. There's probably a lot of sulfate because the landscape is white, so it's very toxic. It's not where a reptile, an alligator, or anything would want to live because there's no food source for them.
So does that rule out any living organism? Not exactly.
If you notice, there's a slight green tint to the creature. And so most likely that is a living organism. That's what we call an algal mat.
An algal mat is a mat of algae that may grow in water or on rocks in both toxic and non-toxic environments, which can balloon up and float to the surface while forming.
In fish tank, you'll see algae build up. And if you have a pump in there, you'll see that the algae literally starts to rise because the air bubbles get trapped underneath. To lift that mat into the air, release it, and then the mat goes back down to the bottom.
Makes sense in theory, but algal mats tend to look like, well, mats. This thing has a completely different shape. So what gives? Our verdict? Unknown organic specimen. While our experts disagree on what this mysterious mud creature is, they both concur
that it is in fact an organic life form of some sort, proving that even in the harshest of environments, life finds a way.
2009, Nushagak Bay, Alaska. Salmon fisherman Kelly Nash is on a boat with his sons, Jason and Kyle, when suddenly they spot unusual movement in the water next to them and start recording this video. The shaky black and white footage shows what appears to be a long, dark, serpentine creature with humps on its back, moving rapidly through the water.
Now watch, its head's gonna pop out. Check this out. Oh, it's blue.
Let's look at that again. Kelly estimates the massive creature to be about 20 to 30 feet long. While this footage is curiously unique, it may actually be showing us a clearer view of a legendary creature, a cryptid as they're known, that's been widely reported before. Field researcher Ken Gerhardt explains.
Cadborosaurus, or Caddy, is a mysterious sea creature that's been reported off the coast of Pacific North America. The name is associated with the location where it's most been seen, which is Cadboro Bay, British Columbia. Cadborosaurus is generally described as an immense serpentine animal, anywhere from 60 to 100 feet in length, with a horse-like head, sharp fish-like teeth, giant forward-facing eyes.
There have been more than 300 sightings of Caddy over the past 200 years, including one case in the 1930s that may have produced actual physical evidence of the creature.
During the summer of 1937, off the coast of British Columbia, there was a strange animal that was found in the stomach of a sperm whale. This animal popped out that was snake-like in form, had a horse-like head, 2 flippers, and a fluke tail. The man in charge actually had these workers take some photographs of it. Subsequently, this became known as the Naden Harbor carcass. In my opinion, this is the same animal that we see in this video. But there are other theories as well, that perhaps we could be looking at a primitive type of snake-like whale known as a basilosaur.
The basilosaur, or Basilosaurus, was a fearsome predatory whale which swam the oceans nearly 40 million years ago. And while scientists first described this as a giant reptile, further research determined it to be a marine mammal, one that could grow up to 65 feet in length. Could this be the same creature?
There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of eyewitness accounts, so I think that we could build a pretty strong case that this animal really does exist.
Right after this video was revealed, 2 Cadborosaurus researchers went to visit the Nash family, who shot this footage. They claimed the creature fully lifted its head out of the water and even turned to face their camcorder. But of course, that piece of evidence isn't on this recording. Let's see what our experts have to say about the evidence that remains.
We first wanted to check the authenticity of this tape, so we brought it to forensic video analyst Michael Primo.
This video has indications that it was enhanced. It has processing done to enlarge it as well as stabilize it. There's too many unknown variables here to actually arrive at some sort of accurate conclusion. Because the video has been enhanced.
So there's already a red flag. But to be fair, we spoke with marine biologist Shay Steingass. She first looks at this creature's possible connection with the prehistoric Basilosaurus.
I don't think that's what we're looking at, because the body type of the basilosaur was actually pretty solid. It wasn't a snake-like animal.
However, Steingass believes this creature does have more in common with the marine mammal Basilosaurus than the supposed reptile corpse from Naden Harbor.
Nushagak Bay is part of a polar Arctic environment, very cold environments to live in. It's very unlikely that any kind of reptile-like animal, especially this size, would be existing in Nushagak Bay. The animals that thrive here are typically either fish, invertebrates that live on the bottom, or marine mammals. There's really no reptiles or snakes that this could be mistaken for.
Many online critics claim we are just looking at some piece of trash or floating debris. But the dozens of tech people and fishermen who have studied this video can't explain how debris could move in such an organic way. Other skeptics have suggested this could be a formation of seals, or possibly a known giant animal like an oarfish or a giant eel. But surprisingly, Steingass is doubtful.
The oarfish has these beautiful dorsal fins that help them be more hydrodynamic as they swim. And we don't see that here. This animal doesn't really seem to have any clear anatomy. Another really popular theory is that this is some kind of a giant eel. And frankly, there's no species of eel that would be quite this size in Nushagak Bay.
And as far as seals go, Steingass says it's unlikely, since seals don't typically swim in linear groups, nor would they keep their heads submerged while exposing other parts of their body. So with all of these potential possibilities ruled out, does Steingass have any idea what this is? Unfortunately, like many who have chased Caddy's tail, she's stumped.
This is really interesting footage, and part of the charm of it for me is that it's difficult to tell exactly what we're looking at. So this might be one of those classic sea monster videos that's going to stick around for a long time.
Our verdict? Possible cryptid. If the video is legit, and yes, that's an if, whatever this thing is has stumped our ace marine biologist. People have been looking at this footage since 2009, and to this day, it remains a mystery.